Perry Belcher, I'm glad that I have trapped you in a hotel room to talk to you for a half hour or so.
Being trapped in a hotel room with Brad Weimer is never a good thing. Just know that.
Well, so we're at Traffic Conversion Summit. You sold Traffic Conversion Summit.
Yeah.
But it's also been sort of
we sold most of it.
Sold most of it.
Yeah, we sold most of it to Blackstone Clarion, their big hedge fund company.
Mm-hmm.
So they bought most of it. Ryan in Digital Marketer still does some of the programming for it. I don't really do anything. I just come in and do my one talk a year. I used to do 3 talks at this every year. And I come in now and I do my one talk and hang around, and somebody buys the old man a drink and then I go home. That's kind of the way it works.
Well, so why do you do the one talk? What do you feel like you get out of it at this point?
I don't know that I do. I don't think I get anything. Most of what I do now, I don't get anything out of.
Yeah.
I just, it's fun to be around people. It's fun to go to events again. Cause for 13 years, I just did events.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to anybody else's hardly at all. Cause we always had so many events going on, and you're always the teacher, right? So you don't learn as much as you actually learn listening, paying attention. And I went back to teaching 8 months ago, I guess, January. I started teaching in January again. I had stopped teaching for like 6 or 8 years, other than War Room and One Talk at TNC. So I went back to teaching, and somebody asked me I was down at Fun Hacking at Russell's thing. So I said, why'd you do it? And it's just really because if I'm teaching, I stay really sharp.
Mm-hmm.
I learn, I study, I test, I prove out things, because then I can go report on those, results. And that's fun. And it makes some money, right? I'm not going to say I'm not doing it because it makes money, because it makes some money. But it really is, it's just because it keeps me mentally sharp.
Focused.
I feel responsible to the people I'm teaching, that I'm teaching them something that's not bullshit. That actually, I might have heard a thing from 2 or 3 people, melded together an opinion, built a system, and then I'll go test it.
Right.
We'll go run tests on it versus just regurgitating the other guy's stuff. We'll test it.
What most people do.
Get some results. And that way I can always start with, hey, let me show you what I just did, and here were my results. That way I take all the bullshit out of the front of it really quick, because this is what we did. This is exactly the outcome it produced. Now, if you want to know how to do that, let me show you how to do it. And it's fun. Yeah.
Well, that has been the premise of War Room, kind of from jump, at least the idea of, so every War Room, which is a mastermind group that is coming to its sunset.
It is at its end. The last one is in October, and we all have different masterminds. Now it bred spread, however many masterminds out of it. I got one, Ryan's got one, Roland's got one. But yeah, it's kind of nexus. That was invented at the very first TNC. Because at the first TNC, we had 3 days we sold 3 days worth of content. And on the 2 hours into the third day, we were out. we didn't have.
And you're like, what are we going to do?
We didn't know what to do. So we did a thing called Wicked Smart, where people got to come up and talk about their biggest accomplishments. And it was a lot of fun. And we decided to sell a mastermind at that event, because we didn't have anything to sell either. Right. So we just decided, hey, we're going to do this mastermind called War Room. And the first year, I think we had 46 applicants, and we only took 20 people. We took the best 20 of the 46 and built up from there. It's pretty good. And it lasted 13 years. I think the longest lasting mastermind ever in history, I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's anybody else's. Not in this industry anyway that I'm aware of. Nobody's had a mastermind last 13 years.
So that was 2010?
Yeah. Would have been 2010 probably.
Yeah, 2010.
Because Ryan and I got together in 2008.
Okay.
And I think 2 years in, we did the first event. Yeah.
Well, what I know about Wicked Smart is that at least the premise is that you have to be actually doing the thing.
You have to show the result first.
Right.
So you have to come in and say, we got this result. Here's how we did it. And here's how that might be applicable to you.
Yeah.
All in 5 minutes.
It's great.
You have 5 minutes to describe, which it never ends in 5 minutes, right? The good ones never end in 5 minutes, because they're going and people are like, especially when it's like Qasim or somebody who's got his brain, his brain's this big.
Yeah. And he's super entertaining.
And good looking.
Yeah. Well,
I hate that guy. I hate everything about him. And he's tall. I really hate him. Yeah.
He's great. So, all right, so let's back out. So tell me, you got together with Ryan Dice in 2008, which is when I got introduced to you guys.
Sure.
I actually went to the first Traffic and Conversion Summit well before I met you at the Hyatt downtown Austin.
Yeah.
And that was really the beginning of the whole internet marketing world to me.
We had 300 people there.
And just by sending an email.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. No, it was a lot harder than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had 300 people there.
Well, then you guys are full of shit because you were on stage and I think you were like, yeah, I don't know. We wanted to do an event. And
well, we sent an email to everybody who bought anything from us for like a year. You know?
Okay. Well, that was what I remember is standing in the back of the room and you saying.
Sure. They were all buyers though. They all bought something, you know. And
we just sent some emails and everybody showed up.
Emails and people showed up. But it was funny, like 10 years in to TNC, we had 300 and it's funny. I was looking through the numbers and we had like 325 staff working the event.
Wow.
And the first year we had 300 and like 16 attendees. You know, we had more, you know, people, staff than we had attendees at the first one when we worked. Then that was in 17, I guess, when we hit 7,000 people. That was a big year.
Yeah.
It was a big year.
Yeah. Well, I'm tremendously impressed with Deanna's capacity to actually run those things.
Yeah, she got up to run up to about then, and then when Clarion took over, they've got their own folks that do all that. But Deanna's great. Yeah.
All right, so back out to 2008, you connected with Ryan. I've heard some hilarious stories before you got into the online marketing world, but give me some background.
I got in trouble. You know, that was the nexus. I always talk about it. It doesn't bother, I don't mind talking about it, but
tell the story.
I got in retail when I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
I started retail stores. I had 42 retail stores before I could buy a beer legally. You know,
when you say you had the stores, what do you mean?
I owned 42 retail stores.
What kind of stores?
Jewelry.
Oh, okay.
I did retail jewelry stores in malls and inside Sears stores at the time. They used to rent out the jewelry department. So I had 19 of those, and I had freestanding kiosks in a couple of stores. I started when I was 18, and by the time I was 20, I had 42 of them.
Wow.
By the time I was 22, I was bankrupt. Lost all my dough because you shouldn't have that much money at 20 years old. You know? And a lot of other reasons. And I just went in and out of retail. So I did a lot of retail, and then I went into manufacturing. And then I did some importing, and then I discovered online. And I was doing between $3 and $4 million a month when I met Ryan, in supplements and chemicals and printing and all sorts of other stuff. And then I got in trouble in the supplement business. Almost went to jail from a state thing, not federal. I had an FDA inspected facility. I'd done everything right from that perspective, but the state of Tennessee came after me for some advertising claims and grabbed all of my money. And in truth, I was being really hot in my claims. I was really making a lot of claims that I was pulling out of data. I had data to back up the claims, but it didn't matter. And I had data, but I didn't necessarily have proof, right? And if you don't have absolute proof, and there were things that I didn't know about the laws. I was just wild and crazy entrepreneur. I'm like, yeah, go for it,
Can you give me specifics there? So like, what was the product you were selling? There
were lots, but one of the things that you can't do, like in a supplement product, let's say that you've got a joint aid. Everybody knows that glucosamine and crinoid helps arthritis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's against the law to say that. You can say it helps joint pain or joint discomfort, but you can't say the word arthritis anywhere in your advertising. It's against the law because that's not a drug, right? If you say that a medical condition's name, then it's a drug. Well, I knew that. I eventually knew that because I had great lawyers, so we didn't do that. But then we started a publishing company and we started publishing books. And in the books, we recommended our products. And because in the books, we mentioned medical conditions, then the assertion was made that book was an extension of the label of the product and therefore a violation. It was pretty thin, man. It was pretty thin. But it gave the state the ability to come and take all my money and all my stuff.
Wow.
Which they did.
And this was the state
of Tennessee
attorney general, or how does that work?
It was the county.
Really?
Was the county. They seized $8 million in assets from me, cash and real estate, closed all my businesses, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get any notice on that?
No.
That's crazy. So normally, I mean, we see this a lot in the payment space, but it's FTC.
Yeah, no, I had no FTC issues. I had no FDA issues. I had no DEA issues. They called in all these people. They all came in and said, no, this guy's fully licensed. He's cool. Everything's good. But once you're in the nuts of that tractor, you kind of don't get out.
Yeah.
You know, so in the middle of all that, Ryan calls me, he says, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know.
And how did you know Ryan at that point?
Through Yannick.
Yannick,
yeah. And so what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. He said, well, I got this little business in Texas. And if you'll come help me run it, I'll give you half of it.
And that was
called Touchtone Publishing. So I went down and we started making products, and we did, he'd been doing $2 million a year for like 3 years in a row. And I can never remember. We either did 7 million in 9 months or 9 million in 7 months. I can't remember. But we, either way, like together, we were a real force together. We really worked well together. We worked each other to death. We tried to outwork one another, right? And by the second year, we were by far the biggest company in the whole industry.
Selling what?
All information training we became digitalmarketer.com. That was a rebrand. And we were selling digital marketing training because in 2008, when there was the big downturn in 2008, that was right around the time we did this, 2008, 2009, when the market crashed. Everybody else was selling stuff for $2,000, and we started selling stuff for $300 with a $300 upsell. And we did that because people's credit card limits got slashed. So people didn't have $2,000 on their credit card to buy a thing if they wanted to, but they could buy bite-sized pieces, right? So we would do $300, $300 upsell, promote a $300 event, et cetera, et cetera. So we get the same amount of money, but a lot more conversions, a lot more customers.
Well, this is a really good lesson in 2022 with what seems to be a looming recession.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it's happening?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think so.
Why not?
But it can't be. It just can't be.
Say more.
You're $6 million. You're 6 million houses behind for housing. You've got 10 million more jobs in America than people want. And there's going to be a recession. It'd be the weirdest recession there ever has been, because those metrics have never existed in a recession of any country of any time in history. And yesterday, the dollar was stronger in the world market yesterday than it's been in 37 years.
Wild.
The US dollar is the strongest currency on the planet right now. You got a housing shortage of 6 million houses. You can't get people to work because everybody's making too much money. But there's going to be a recession. There's going to be inflation.
Yeah.
There's no doubt there's going to be inflation.
Well, government is forcing inflation.
There's no doubt there's going to be inflation. The government's trying to curtail inflation with interest rates, but there's definitely going to be inflation. Once this crisis is over, there is a bigger crisis looming, because 25 to 50% of all jobs are going to be replaced with robotics and AI over the next 10 years. So you're going to have a whole slew of untrained workers that are really quite literally unemployable. That's going to be a whole giant problem to deal with that we've never considered. And it's not going to be just in the US, it's going to be global.
No, and the general argument against that is that we go through these iterations and these changes in society routinely, right? So the printing press happens, right?
Sure.
Or the TV comes to be, right? The internet happens, and we keep saying, oh yeah, it's going to eradicate an industry, but another industry pops up. Now, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that may be different now is the pace at which the change is happening, right?
Yeah.
So historically, you've got more runway or padding around the transition. And with technology, how it is now, when a new technology happens, the adoption happens so fast.
It does.
That I think that that's a reasonable hypothesis.
Well, there's a real challenge right now, I think, in I like this kind of crap. This doesn't have anything to do with marketing or anything else, but I like it. The challenge right now is a lot of things need to come to parity.
A lot of things need to come to parity.
Come into parity. Come back into parity.
So you said to parity, like to parity.
Come back. Well, a lot of things do need to come to parity.
A lot of things need to come to parity.
But if you look at inflation numbers that aren't just milk, bread, cheese, and eggs, which is what they try to like pitch, the government pitches. But if you look at the cost of a Big Mac meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But cost of a Big Mac meal is up 300% in 10 years, right? It's $10.67 for a Big Mac meal in Las Vegas right now through the drive-through. Well, ask me how I know. But wages have only increased about 35% in 10 years.
Mm.
So when you've got prices going up 300% and wages increasing 30%, you're going to have an incident. I mean, people are going to rebel. There's going to be, and they're rebelling right now by saying, I'm not going to work. I mean, they don't have a lot of choice in some cases. If you're a single mom with a couple of kids, you can't work unless you make at least $80,000 a year. You just can't.
What do you do?
I don't know. I really don't know, but you can't work because like in Las Vegas right now, 2-bedroom apartment averages $2,000 a month, right? Mm-hmm. That's got to come. That's got to be your net paycheck money going to that, right? And daycare is about $325 a week for one child and about $400 a week if you combine two. So now it's $1,600 for childcare. So you know about $2,000 for an apartment, $1,600 for childcare. You haven't bought food or gas yet, right? So let's assume you spend $400 in food and you spend $200 in gas. You're at, I don't know what that came out to, but that's like $4,200 net paycheck money, which means you got to make about $80,000 a year to make that happen, and you won't have anything left over.
Yeah.
For anything.
Yeah.
So, it's a tough time now. It's a tough time, but I think prices are going to continue to rise because I think they should. I think wages will continue to rise because I think they should. And people are going to go through the pain of that for a while until it all gets back to parity and people are making reasonable money again. And some of the money that's been paid to, corporate executives is probably going to have to be reduced and spread around to the workforce more. Because I think the average CEO now makes 200 times more money than the average worker in their company, which I understand why. You can justify why that CEO is worth it, right? Sure. But for the company's survival, somebody still has to lay the bricks. And you can't, I read the other day that Bezos, Gates, Buffett, and Musk together have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the United States combined.
I mean, that sounds about right.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But I think that typically what happens in the past in situations like this, you get a giant increase in income tax. And I think that's probably going to happen. I think you're going to be back in a 50% tax bracket federally before long. Oh,
that's brutal.
For a lot of people, because unfortunately, it doesn't matter your politics. Politics really are 100% irrelevant. These things are kind of inevitable, right? Andrew Yang ran on that thing of giving everybody $38,000 a year, and everybody thought he was crazy. He ain't that crazy. If you don't, what are you going to do? Let's just don't feed these people. And what are they going to do? They're going to go steal shit. They're going to kill people. They're going to resort to crime because they're going to have to. So if you're going to keep the nation running, something like that's going to happen. I don't know what. I don't want to know.
So two things on this. One, from a tax perspective, somebody said something to me the other day that stuck with me, which was, as convoluted and ridiculous as the tax ecosystem is in the U.S., it was actually Taro brought this up. Taro Four Sigmatic. Oh, he was in War Room for a minute, but he founded Four Sigmatic, which sells mushroom coffee, and he has. Oh yeah, I know the company. Yeah, and they're global, and they've been selling to every country for years. Yeah, and he said being compliant with taxes in all the countries is a horrific thing. And he said actually the tax structure in the U.S. is one of the worst But because it's so convoluted, it's one of the best for entrepreneurs.
It's the easiest to manipulate.
That's exactly it. And he said, so, it's great for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that any tax change like that actually accomplishes the goal that the government wants it to. But then the other side of that is that with it being difficult to hire and the problem with wages, et cetera, many of those people have moved into the gig economy. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want a job because I can do some shit on Fiverr for,
about 36% of people. So last year, 36% of Americans got a 1099.
Wow.
In 1974, it was 11%.
Yeah.
So
36 is a huge number.
3 times more people now are earning non-wage income. It doesn't mean that's the only income they get, right?
Yeah.
But you think about it, every Airbnb owner is a business owner now. Every hairdresser that rents a chair and does their thing is a business owner. Every Uber driver is a business owner. Every Fiverr gig worker is a business owner. Everybody that does anything for, employers are trying to get further and further away from actually employing people. They're trying to figure out ways to get them to work. Like the California law is trying to reverse that because Californians get hurting because they can't collect so much income tax.
Right.
So they're making truck drivers in California now,
employees,
owner operators, even employees, which is really disrupting the trucking industry a great deal. But it's mainly because California wants to collect income tax.
Of course.
Them. Yeah.
And because California is a horribly run state. And so they can't handle running the state on the highest income tax that exists in the country.
Okay. That's one way to look at it.
How do you look at it? You don't look at it that way?
I look at it as having the largest cash surplus of any state in the United States of America and the most thriving economy.
Really?
100%. Statistically, it's the richest state in the country. It has been forever. It has the most cash. There's $100 billion sitting in the state surplus coffers of the state of California.
Really?
Mountains of cash. It actually works. The California system works for California.
And I would.
I'm not saying it works for everybody else.
I would adjust.
And you're welcome to go somewhere. California is always you're welcome to go somewhere else.
And that's why I would adjust that to say it worked. Because right now, what's happening? You've got like droves of people evacuating.
You're so wrong.
Silicon Valley.
You are so wrong.
Well, I'm speaking from the perspective of Austin taking Silicon Valley away from Silicon Valley.
I'm speaking from the perspective of facts and statistics. California population is growing.
Is it really?
Not shrinking, absolutely.
I didn't know that.
It's always going to grow, dude. What it's going to grow into is a little more like Miami, probably, where you got a lot more foreign nationals here. You got everybody who does well wants to live in California. They really do. I mean, because California's beautiful.
Sure.
The weather's beautiful. The coast is beautiful. Everybody wants to be here. We grow up watching Los Angeles on television from the time we're 2. Everybody comes to wants to go to LA to live. LA is la la land. It really is. And every pretty person in the world globally wants to go to LA because it's the land of pretty people, right? So, but those pretty people somehow end up making a living. And then you got people that understand how to run their businesses and keep cash other places and things like my business partner, Roland or Frank, or those guys make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. They can go live somewhere else. Frank moved to Miami for 6 months. Back to California. They're willing to write the check to be here. It will always be busy and it'll always be full of rich people and rich companies. It really will be. Austin gets the dummy tech jobs.
Oh man, I don't know about that.
They do. Google doesn't have a single PhD in Austin. Every PhD at Google is guess where?
These are claims. I don't know. I'm going to validate these claims. I don't know about
Well,
this.
they might have one, right? Right. But generally speaking, they farm off the dummy jobs to Austin. Facebook has its customer service department in Austin, right? Great. Congratulations, Facebook. I work for Facebook. What do you do? Customer service, or ad regulation. The person who bills Facebook is clearly in Menlo Park. I mean, it's still all the brain power is there because it's going to migrate there.
Why?
Because that's where they pay people like that millions of dollars. You don't get that you get a lot of $200,000-$300,000 a year jobs in Austin, maybe $150,000 to $300,000 a year jobs. I'd venture to say there are very few people paid $1 million a year to work for a company in Austin. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that make a lot of money in Austin.
No question about it.
But I think there's, as far as wages go, prevailing wages go and all that, there's a reason why Elon wants to move a lot of stuff to Texas. He wants to pay less taxes. He wants to pay less money for people. But he's not putting the engineering departments of Tesla in Austin. The engineering departments of Tesla are staying in California.
And you think the correlation there is that people that have money want to live in California?
Screw that door to that body over there with this wrench, that's going to Austin, I mean, seriously, you guys are building a big gigaplant that's going to build cars, that's congratulations. You're going to have auto workers.
Yeah.
They're not brain workers.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people in Austin are stupid. There's a lot of really smart people in Austin.
For sure.
But it just doesn't have the history of attracting really highbrow brainiac programmers. And California has a 50-year history of it. And they're also not going to go to Texas, a lot of them, because of probably the vast majority of those people are liberal minded, and because they've been in San Francisco for a long time.
Sure.
So they're very liberal minded. Texas to them is like, going to Germany.
Sure.
They don't want that.
Well, yeah, but Austin. I mean, Austin's the, quote unquote, blueberry in the chili bowl, right?
Right.
Like Austin is the liberal of the Texas.
Sure.
Right. But it is still Texas.
But it's still, it still ain't San Francisco, right?
No,
yeah. So you're not,
Texas.
Yeah, San Francisco's got its own vibe. And now, Silicon Beach, Santa Monica is becoming a really big hotbed for tech.
No, I don't know that.
Yeah, they're doing well, but still not anything like the Bay.
Yeah.
The Bay's a completely different animal. All the co-founders in the Bay and all that stuff. The guys in the Bay that have founded a couple of companies or been a tech founder or whatever and had an exit, they can write their own checks and make millions and millions of dollars for 2-3 year gigs. Go in, start a thing, bring in these 2-3 people. They're almost like movie stars. They're like,
well, they are today.
When DiCaprio and Scorsese say we're going to make a movie, they're going to make a movie because everybody's going to write a check, right? So if you take the guy that started Yelp and put him with the technology guy that, that started, Tinder, and they're going to make a social dating profile together, well, everybody just throws checks at them.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen in Austin. It doesn't exist there. Not at the level that it does in California.
Like, you've got plenty of historical data points to say that. I just think that the wave in the last couple of years has shown some evidence to the contrary of that. And I think that the upcoming 5-10 years will also be interesting.
Well, your governor's shipping people to different states, telling them to get on the bus to go to the dreamland, and shipping them to another state makes the state look like a pretty big asshole.
We'll see.
It's cool for other people.
Yeah.
Texans go, hell yeah, you show them, boss. Yeah. You put them on that bus.
We'll see. Yeah.
But that guy working for Google that's trying to be recruited by some company in Austin is going to be like, screw y'all, you rednecks.
All right. So let me back out of politics here for a second. So let's go back to the Perry Belcher story.
Sure.
So we've got.
So there I was. I was running for governor as a Republican.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we've got the supplement story, which you got in trouble not with the FTC, but with
local county officials,
which is wild. And they just
took all the money,
seized your bank accounts.
They seize it all. They can't keep it unless you voluntarily give it to them. So they seize it all, and then they tell you about how they're going to drag your life out for 3 or 4 years in court, or you can just surrender it.
Oh my God!
So you just surrender it.
And so when you then partnered with Ryan Dice for what ultimately became Digital Marketer.
Yep.
Did you have any, because of that legal incident, did you have anything that got in the way of the partnership?
No, not really. Not really. I had some obviously some bad press because the government, when they're going to take your money, they create bad press around you so that it makes it easier for them to take your money. So I had some bad press around me. But generally speaking, it was no big deal. No, not really. I started off, he and I were both doing public persona stuff. And I eventually just said, I'll just write the copy and I'll be you. So I wrote all the copy, I wrote all the emails, and I wrote a lot of scripts for Ryan. And Ryan's a great pitch guy. So we were able to, I didn't write all of it. Ryan wrote a lot of it. We collaborated a lot. We'd stay up till 3:00 in the morning writing things. But generally speaking, eventually Ryan became the mouthpiece of it. Mm-hmm. And I just did the back end. And then we did that for a number of years. And then we bought a company called Survive in Place. It was a survival company.
Survive in Place?
Yeah. And we were kind of starting to butt heads, mm-hmm. right? A little bit, because we were all kind of trying to run everything in the company as like co-CEOs, which doesn't really work that great. And so I went on to do the consumer businesses. So I did that and then grew that division we got up to about 36 million at its peak just before Trump was elected. So I stayed over on that side. He stayed on the B2B side, and that worked out pretty well. And I stopped teaching any marketing stuff. I was just doing. Mm-hmm. Right. So I stopped teaching except at War Room and except at TNC once a year. And I did that for about 8 years. And then we sold TNC to Blackstone. And then, I sold my interest in digital marketer to Ryan and Roland. They sold their interest in the consumer brands to me. Then I sold half of the interest in some of those consumer brands to Agora. Mm-hmm. And I sold an agency that I had to a company in Kentucky that's medical marketing. So I had 4 exits in 3 years, and probably should have quit. But I, of course, went back to the trough as entrepreneurs do. And
having fun. Ish.
Ish.
Yeah. Well, let me break that apart a little bit because you gave sort of the bullets of the whole thing, but let me see if I've got it. And I know some of the, inner workings because we've been doing your payments for a very long time. Sure. But so digital marketer existed with you two. How long into it were you before Roland got involved?
Roland became a War Room member. Mm-hmm. And
he was wicked smart.
Wicked smart. Yeah, he won wicked smart for a lot of times in a row, right? Probably about as many as Qasim has now. And he was a lawyer and he was a pretty good deal maker. And we made a mistake. Ryan and I made a mistake and hired a CEO to come run digital marketer. And it was a horrible experience. Just almost destroyed the company. And not completely because they were bad, but we were only giving up certain degrees of control, and it was a hard job for them. I think they weren't very good for our culture. We had like 88% employee turnover in a year. And yeah, it was there was a lot of funkiness to it. Anyhow, so Roland came in and said, well, why don't we want to help you unwind that? And he did. He helped us to unwind the deal because it was very contractually heavy deal with her. He helped unwind it. And then tell you the long story, the court shipped to be a partner, but he really wanted to be a partner. Mm-hmm. So it took a while, but eventually he bought into the company and probably in 2014, maybe, probably. I think. I'm not really sure. I don't remember.
Somewhere around there.
2014, 2015, something like that.
Well, that was right around when Easy Pay Direct started working with Digital Marketer and with you.
Yeah.
And as long, I think that the entire time I was there, Roland was there, or at least close to it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened in that era was you started these other brands, or you had them maybe at the time, but one of the things that Roland is very good at is tremendously complicated legal structures.
Yes, boy.
So I remember looking at the org chart of this.
I'm trying to break all that apart right now and simplify it in the companies that I got because I adopted a lot of that over. Yep. I inherited a lot of that when we split, and we did stock buyouts of each other's companies and stuff like that. So we inherited those structures, and they are hairy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and basically you've got a couple of fundamental reasons that you make these complex structures. One is tax. The other is protection, so legal protection to kind of hide things or create layers, right? And then the other would be like entity ownership, right? Who owns what?
That's the latter reason for me is the reason I do it. The first two kind of don't matter a lot. I mean, I don't think it's most companies that have a lot of entities like that. They've commingled funds. They've done stuff that it would be easy if somebody were going to sue you to bring it down. I don't know that there's any tax advantage to it at all. But for me, it's like when there's partnership, if we're partners in one entity and we're partners in another, you know, those ownership percentages, rights, things are all different. Each one of those contracts is different. So you kind of want those to be different. But I'll tell you, having a lot of entities is administratively very expensive. Yeah. Because I have to pay accountants to do, you know, that entity that did $100,000 last year still has to file. That dead entity you haven't thought about in 3 years because you stopped doing business over there still has to file a return every year and still has to submit books and still has to do all those things. So administratively, it probably costs $3,000 to $5,000 a year a company for the inactives and more for the actives just to handle the administration of them every year.
Not to mention the mental overhead.
Yeah.
And think about all the entities and who owns what. And
I hate 100% of it. They brought Warren Buffett came before Congress. He said the only time he was ever nervous about getting in trouble in his life was he came before Congress when they were kind of during the, I guess that was 2008 when Shearson and all those guys went. And he showed his legal structure. They made him show his legal structure. And he said, I looked sketchy. He said, it was all perfectly legal. But when you look at that spaghetti bowl of holding companies that held holding companies that held other companies and Nevis that did this and did that, it's all legal, but it looked suspect. And I think when you have that complex structure, when you have an IRS audit or something like that, I think you automatically look suspect. And I think that your audit's going to cost you 20 times more than it would if you had a single entity. So there's ups and downs to both of that. Those things.
So Roland's good at doing those things.
Yeah, he's good at doing those things. I'm not good at doing much of anything. You know, Roland's good at that. Ryan's good at building teams and culture and all that stuff. And I ain't good at any of that.
You're good at selling shit.
I'm good at selling shit.
And you're good at spinning up new companies to do it quickly.
Yeah, and growing quickly.
Absolutely.
I'm really good at fast growth, or used to be anyway. I don't know if I'm as good as I used to be.
Well, so in 14, 15, something like this, at some point you bought this survival brand.
Yep.
And that ultimately spun into many different companies that you ran. And so when you said you sold your interest in digital marketer to them and they sold their interest in the other companies to you.
Correct.
This whole mess of other companies is what we're referencing, or what I'm referencing.
Yeah.
Right?
So there was a lot in my bucket of stuff that I had been running. And I never wanted to run that stuff because, I mean, I'm not the avatar. I like entrepreneurs a lot. I understand entrepreneurs. I can talk to entrepreneurs. I'm not really the avatar in a survival. I don't have an extra bottle of water in my house. If the whole world blows up, I ain't Tucker with a 20,000 gallon diesel fuel tank buried in his front yard. You're probably going to make his kids grow an extra leg, but he's going to have diesel when he needs it. I don't know. I'm joking about that.
So
but and I like Tucker. You know that.
Tucker's great.
But all those guys have went up to Wimberley and, in my opinion, just went batshit crazy up there. I don't know what they're doing.
Says the guy that owns a big survivalist company.
Of course I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News, but do you think he really is a fad?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, so let's talk about why you do it then. So at this point, digitalmarketer.com exists and is doing what roughly in revenue?
I don't have any idea.
Okay. Well, so
I don't have any idea what Digital Marketer's revenue is.
No, not now. In 2014.
Oh, in 2014?
Yeah.
We were probably doing 20 million.
So you're doing, roughly 20 million in 2014. And
I think we did $21 million, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014. But that was kind of everything in a lump.
Okay. Including the other brands, other companies, or?
I think so.
And this is where I'm going with it is
21 or 24 million. I can't remember.
but DM's doing well, right?
Yeah, it was doing fine. Yeah.
And then you have these other brands that you go pursue. Why do you split your focus and pursue these other brands and these other projects?
That was a really weird, I'll tell you exactly how that came to be, and there wasn't a lot of thought in it. We had a client that came in and
best way to do business.
Yeah, you're right. We had a client that we were, you know, one of those 25K days. Remember I was talking about those?
Yeah.
So we had a client that would come in and pay 25K every 6 months or so, and he would just tell us why what we were proposing wouldn't work for his business.
Fun.
And then 6 months later, he'd book another day. So finally, we were looking at the fundamentals of the business one day, and Ryan and I walked out of the room. We were working with him. I said, man, let's just buy it. This is a good deal. He doesn't want to do it. Let's just buy it. So we bought it, and we bought, I think, 2/3 of it, if I remember. I don't know. This story could be totally wrong numerically, but I think we bought 2/3 of it. And the guy was a true believer. He was a true survivalist believer, right? So we're humping along. So we went from, like, he was doing about 30 grand a month. So we get up to a couple $100,000 a month within like 3 months, because we knew there were knobs we could turn there, right? So we got up to, it might not have been that much, but it was a lot, maybe 180 grand or so a month. And one afternoon we're in the office and the guy comes in and he says, hey man, at like 5 o'clock on a Friday, hey man, we gotta make plans. We gotta convert all of our money to cash to gold by Monday. And we're like, what? He said, yeah, man, you don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. And I said, what's going to happen on Tuesday? He said, man, if I tell you, you're probably going to think I'm crazy.
We're kind of already there, buddy.
We're close. And he's a dear friend. He's actually a really good guy. Ryan made the joke. He said, well, if everything's going to go to hell on Tuesday, you should just give us all your part now. That's a matter, right? But we had a joke. But bottom line was, we bought him out.
Wow.
Because he was sure that the economic world was going to collapse on Tuesday. And Tuesday came and Tuesday went, as this talk of this recession will likely come and go. And nothing happened, right? As oftentimes nothing happens, right? That's about the time I moved over there to full-time put my attention to that business. So I put my attention to that business. He put his attention to DM. And we went from 200,000 a month to 3 million plus a month. You were processing all that, I guess, in 16. And then Trump was elected. And as soon as Donald Trump became president, the whole survival industry just kind of imploded. Everybody's like, we're fine now. Everything's cool. Seriously, they really, but you know that. You saw
this is how this works. Yeah.
You saw it happen. It was really crazy. And then everybody thought when Biden got elected, it would come back. Kind of modestly has, but not like that. There was like a perfect storm. It was like you got a very assertive woman or a black man, just driving that base nuts of the potentiality they could be. Either one of them could be president, drove that base crazy. So it was really easy to, they were riled up. They were spending money.
But so the survival space was only one of, 8 other companies that you're running?
Yeah. So what we did, I ran survival for like a year and it got really big. I mean, we were doing we went really quick to $1 million a month, like less than 6 months, we were at $1 million a month. And then I just had this epiphany one morning and I said, it's not the survival thing that's making us money. It's the model that we're running. So let's look at our customer and run them through Nielsen and Tower Data and find out what else they're into. So it turned out they were into DIY projects. They were into home cooking recipes, barbecuing. They were into guns. They were into conservative political news. So we created all these properties, 4 or 5 other properties around the same customer's other interests. And we began launching one every month or so. And we launched it from this one. It's all based on the Randolph Hearst model. It's how Hearst Publishing formed.
I don't know what that is.
You never watched Citizen Kane?
You know,
If you give me a little more champagne, I'll tell you the story.
I'm in. I'm in.
So Randolph Hearst owned newspapers back in the day in the 20s. And he used his newspapers to launch magazines. And then he would launch a magazine and he would find the sub-reader of that magazine. He would launch another magazine. So like Red Book and Better Homes and Gardens and all those. I think all those were Hearst properties, but most major magazines were owned by the Hearst Corporation. And he would use I kind of coined a phrase there that media begets media. So if you own a media company, you can use that media company to start another media company like TMZ. TMZ owns TMZ, but they own the Daily Fish Wrapper and they own 4 or 5 other websites. Larry Flint, that I got to meet and spend a lot of time with actually in Bel Air. I used to drink with Larry Flint at Bel Air Hotel when I lived out there.
I don't know who that is.
He started Hustler magazine.
I'm just kidding. I know who that is.
Yeah, of course you do. Elon Musk, you never heard of. Larry Flint. Larry Flint, you know who that is. But Larry Flint started tons of other adult magazines and then eventually tons of adult websites and then tons of adult clubs. He knew his customer. You know, he knew his customer and what they bought. So we expanded off. And then eventually the weird one was DIY projects. We noticed that when we started, it was all the men were the customer base, but as more women came in and became customer base there, a lot of the searches were DIY makeup. So we started another site called makeuptutorials.com and drove the makeup people from this site over to that site. And that site became popular. And from there, we built a whole nother circle of women's interest.
Wild. So ultimately,
makeup tutorials was born from survival life. That
amazing.
should tell you something about the customer base. I'll tell you a funny story really quick. So for a while, we were running a lot of Amazon affiliate stuff, and we run it through our affiliate link, and we send them over to buy our products to Amazon. And we had our credit card knife thing. But as an affiliate, if you run it through your affiliate link, you can actually see what else they buy when they buy it.
Through Amazon's affiliate program?
Yeah. You can see the shopping cart of the person because you get paid commission on everything they buy in the cart. If you send them over to Amazon to buy a widget, they buy your $10 thing and a big screen TV, you get paid the affiliate commission on both, right?
It's so crazy.
It's kind of cool. So, but they show you, they used to, I don't know if they still do or not, but they show you what else the person bought. And one of our best orders, we screenshot it. A guy bought a credit card knife, a 4XL bright blue spandex jumpsuit, and a penis pump. That was his shopping cart. So you got to wonder what that weekend was like. It's gonna, somebody was having a party.
It's it's the making for a ridiculous movie right there.
Yeah, right.
For sure. That's a great character in a movie somewhere. So ultimately, I think that, from the outside, I looked at it and thought, why the fuck is Perry doing 12 different things? And then the whole rest of the team is driving one product through digital marketer. And now through conversation, it sounds much more like Perry was really focused on maximizing the LTV of the buyer.
Of the customer. Perry wasn't doing multiple things. It's always I say the dumb way to look at it, but I've had partners, employees, and why are we doing 19 things? We're not doing 19 things. If Sam Walton had said, I sell tomatoes, I'm going to focus on tomatoes.
He'd have a smaller company.
You think? Right? It was the dumbest thing ever to say that. It's like, well, what are you doing? Because really, online retailing is just retailing. It's just retailing. You're serving, and the hardest part of it is building an audience. So once you've built an audience of, Bud from the firing range, that's our guy, right? Bud that loves going to the firing range, and he's got a bunch of guns, and he's kind of overweight. He's got a really nice recliner, and he watches a lot of Fox News at night, and he's been married to the same woman forever, and he bitches and complains about the taxes and tells everybody there's a coming recession, and he's worried about everything, is scared of his own shit. That's our guy. So when he's not The best example of this is not mine. Unfortunately, I'm really pissed about it. But Bud is not always survivaling, right? So what else is Bud doing when he's not survivaling? Well, one of the most brilliant things in a long time is Black Rifle coffee, also known as coffee. Put in a bag with an AR-15 on the front of it because a bunch of dudes love AR-15 shit. So it's like, got an AR-15? Drink coffee? Buy Black Rifle coffee. It's just funny that people don't think about that. And like, we made a lot of money over the years selling people auto insurance, us doing auto insurance leads and home mortgage leads and stuff like that. Because, I think, Brad Goss? You should know Brad. Brad's hilarious.
I don't hang out with other people named Brad. It's a rule I have.
Well, I get it. But he has a saying. He said, not everybody that, let me make sure I get it right. Not everybody that buys laundry detergent watches porn. But everybody that watches porn buys laundry detergent. So if you've got porn traffic, right, sell them laundry detergent. If you've got survival traffic, sell them laundry detergent. They're still going to buy the things that everybody buys.
Wow.
People don't think about that.
Yeah.
And we make a lot of money off those lists. We rent those lists. We sell data from those lists. We politically fundraise from those lists. There's those lists of people who come in to the survival-y space. They have other value. And so does everyone's list. Everyone's list has more value than they extract from it. Everyone's.
Yeah, well, certainly ours does. And we do a terrible job monetizing our list.
You don't hear if this probably won't make the cut because it's a longer story, but it's an interesting story. So I'm down I'll have to pull out hold on while I whip this out.
Uh-oh.
I'll have to pull out my phone to do this because it's a fascinating story. So I met this young man down at Funnel Hacking, and he was telling me, he said, man, just want to tell you, I made millions of dollars because of you and yada, yada, yada. I said, what do you do? He says, I kind of own a pooper scooper company.
Awesome.
So you're a millionaire with a pooper scooper company. Yep. How many locations you got? 1. I'm like, shut up. He said, yeah, man. So I just did what you told me to do because I'd done a talk once before called my Black Book talk that you always need to have resources available for your customers of things that you don't do. So he does pooper scooper. So they started out just doing dog waste removal. Now they do litter box sanitation. They do lawn deodorizing to get, especially if you have AstroTurf, to get the poop smell off your lawn. But their big one is they do pet food delivery. So when they come to poop or scoop your lawn once a month, they drop off your dog food. They sell pet supplements and treats. They have an arrangement worked out with a pet groomer, a pet sitter, a pet trainer. All those pay him a 20% commission. He microchips dogs for $85 a dog. Every year he gives his customers a new pet ID. Every month he drops off a toy for the dog. They give pet portraits to their people at Christmas. And they give 10% of all their revenues to no-kill pet shelters. And every week he sends an email out with the pictures of the dogs' lives that the pooper scooper people saved. The pooper scooper customers, because you used us, you saved all these dogs this week.
Amazing.
And he does almost $1 million a year in Toronto.
Amazing.
Isn't that insane?
It's great.
So people don't think about, when you got a customer, what else is that customer opening their wallet for? And how can you get in between? If you can't get all that transaction, how can you get in between it?
Yeah.
How can you get in between that transaction and say, hey, by the way, if you're buying this widget that's loosely related, I got a guy.
So my struggle with that in general is, and I've had this conversation several times, where those additional services are just that. They're additional services, right? They're extra products or they're extra SKUs in the company. At what point do you say, hey, my core product is good enough and now I'm going to throw new products at them, versus focusing on the core product to make it better? And I guess if you're selling somebody else's product, then it doesn't matter. But
there's 2 ways to look at it. You can do it this way, or you can do the other side of it. And really, you need to do both. Is what about the customers who don't buy from you? Why didn't they buy from you? Well, you may never know, right? But they had a need. They found you because they had a need. You know, I always joke about, like, if you and I go to the bar tonight and I hit on the girl and she burns me down, I might as well introduce her to you. Maybe you'll have a shot. Maybe, maybe you're her flavor and I'm not, right? And that's oftentimes true with the offers. We run a lot of affiliate offers. We only go 7 days with our own stuff. And then if they don't buy something from us in 7 days, we start showing them other people's stuff, because she's just not into you, dude. If she ain't texting you back and she ain't calling you back, and your buddy says, hey, man, I like that girl from last week. You care if I give her a call? You ought to be like, sure, man. Send me video, You get a little something anyway, right? But it's kind of like that. So there's that
was code for affiliate commission, right?
Right. So there's basically, you can take your trash.
Yep.
Because if you're paying for media, you're going to acquire a lot of garbage in the net. The smart people learn how to make money from the garbage, so that when you get the tuna, when you get that one that you really want, you haven't paid for a whole lot of dead traffic. There's all traffic has some value, right? It just may not be valuable to you.
Right.
It might be valuable to somebody else. And then on the other side of that,
they're still consumers. They're still buying something.
And on the other side of that, referring people out to other services. Like right now, we're doing a lot of email stuff for people. That's kind of becoming one of my big things, is doing like email training, email consulting, and, really helping increase people's email incomes, because most people suck at email. But like your clients, you could refer, I'm not saying you refer clients to me, but if you referred a client to me, you could make some money. But more importantly, your customers' transactional volume will likely rise.
Right.
So you get a double dip.
Those are the best.
Right. You get to do something that provided a service to the customer, and you made a little dough. It helped the customer, and in turn, it helps you, because weirdly enough, you're sort of a partner.
Right. Because we're paid on a percentage of the overall sales of that company.
You're a partner in that company in a weird way.
Yeah.
So if you can do anything to to add value or help with growth of gross revenues to your clients, then they're happy that you did it.
100%.
And that people are weird about affiliate stuff. They're like, well, man, I don't know if I want to send my people affiliate stuff or not. They're going to think it's spammy. But it all depends on whether it's helpful or not. If you had an ingrown toenail, I always use this example because my grandmother and my aunt used to write letters to each other almost every day. My aunt lived in Michigan. My grandmother lived in Kentucky. And they would send each other newspaper clippings all the time. And if you had an ingrown toenail and I knew it, and I knew we're talking, man, this toenail's killing me. I go back home and I see something in the newspaper. Hey, here's how to cure an ingrown toenail. And I clip it out and I mail it to you, or I email you an article or whatever. You're not going to be grateful to the blog. You're not going to be grateful to the writer. You're not going to be grateful to the mailman for delivering the letter. You'll be grateful to me for going, man, he thought about me and saw something that might help and sent me a solution to my problem. And if you're very selective in what you promote to your people, it actually benefits you, benefits them, benefits whoever you're promoting.
Agreed.
And everybody wins, but you got to be super selective.
Yeah, I had for some reason growing up, I had this internal narrative that, and I know many people probably have this because of their parents, that it's rude to interrupt people. And so I grew up with this idea of me interrupting a group of people or a hot girl, right, that I want to go pick up, was inappropriate or rude. And years ago, something shifted and I thought, you know what? Everybody loves a pleasant, entertaining interruption.
So that's why you got that haircut.
Exactly. And the mohawk.
People like roosters and people like, I'm just kidding.
No, but that's it's funny because that's not it. But it made me remember that if you are sending an offer that's helpful to the person and it's delivered in a way that actually adds value to their day, everybody loves it. If I was you got a lot of clients. I might call up my clients every year. Just make a point to call everybody at least once a year and say, hey, man,
I know everybody. I got a big Rolodex. I know all the expert guys. I know who's real good and I know who's really not good. And I'm just calling you to see if there's anything that you're stuck on right now in your business. I can make a connection for you and try to help you fix. I don't want anything for it. Just let me know. And I'll bet you some people are like, man, I really needed this or I really needed that. And if you connect that up and it's a successful experience, they're going to be grateful for it and it might help their business to grow.
Mm.
I've got a buddy of mine, I won't say his name right now, but I love him to death. And I know that he has to have me on a tickler thing. But twice a year he calls me. Man, just want to tell you, man, I really appreciate you. But I know him to be a good guy too. Mm-hmm. But I bet he has a cadence of doing that. Mm-hmm. So I bet he reminds himself to call and keep in touch because so many people don't. Yeah. And like in your business, you provide a kind of a silent service. Mm-hmm. Right.
Hopefully, right?
Right.
If we do our job really well, then it runs really smoothly.
Yeah. But reaching out a couple times a year to saying, hey, man, and remind them, say, dude, I make more money when you make more money. Mm-hmm. How can I help you? How can I use my connections and my network to help you make more money? Mm-hmm. I'm happy to do it. And, maybe it's even connecting people that somebody over here has a big audience and somebody over here has a great product. You should really pair up. I'd like that. He'd say, if you call me and said, hey man, one of my accounts has got this product and survival. It's just killing it right now. Do you want me to connect you guys up so you can promote it? And you call the other guy and say, hey, I got a guy over here with a great big list. Do you want to promote your stuff? Sure. And now you're in between, and whether you make any money or not is irrelevant.
It is irrelevant.
It's that you've provided a value and you will probably make money on both sides of that aisle. So, but it's irrelevant whether you do or you don't.
I agree. Well, and the other, one of the general premises that I live by is that the value is the relationship. Mm-hmm. So whether I make money on that transaction, right? And ironically, of course, all my money is very transactional in the payment space, right? Literally. Yeah. But whether I make money on that introduction or transaction isn't relevant to me at all because it builds such a deep relationship with the person.
Sure.
Because you added value to the person, right? Because you took your time to say, hey, I'm going to interrupt your day.
Even if they don't use it.
Only to add value here.
Yeah, even if they don't use it, it's still a thoughtful thing. I had a question for you. What do you think is going to evolve in the payment space? Because there's a lot of talk right now about peer-to-peer payments and wallets and less Visa, MasterCard. And people are hating Visa, MasterCard on both sides of the aisle right now. It seems the consumer.
How much time you got?
Yeah, right. It seems like there's going to be. They're just so hard to unseat, but it seems like there's going to be some dramatic changes made very, very soon and I mean not very, very soon, but within the next 2 to 5 years to the payment space are going to be pretty colossal.
You have 6 minutes. You want the 6
sure,
minutes?
Yeah, I do.
Here?
Yeah.
So I'll lay some foundation. So Visa, MasterCard started late 50s, right? It took them, they had two parties they needed to convince for this thing to work. The first was they had to convince consumers, hey, we're going to give you this thing. You can go get anything you want. You can pay for it later. Fuck yeah.
That's pretty easy.
All consumers are like, I'm in, right? The other thing they had to do is convince businesses, hey, so these people are going to come in. They're not going to give you any money. They're just going to show you this piece of plastic. Give them the thing. And we'll pay you. We'll pay you in a few days. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's going to cost you 5%. Little bit of an uphill battle there. Now their pitch was, but they're going to buy more.
Right.
Because
and they will.
And they do, as it turns out. So over 60 years, they got damn near full adoption of people accepting credit cards, right? So 2010, right? Now the moat that they had that prevented people from going to another product is they built this ecosystem with hardware, credit card terminals, right? Closed system. Only Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover could work in this system. In 2010, the iPad came out, roughly. As soon as the iPad came out, knockoffs came out, $100 tablets. When that happened, in that instant, the network got democratized because you no longer needed a credit card terminal to accept payments. You needed to write software.
Sure.
And as soon as the software happened, now we're in a whole new playground because the internet is the network in the frame.
Right.
The software allows anybody to break in. Now all you have is brand recognition of Visa and MasterCard. And now that all you have is brand,
and a banking network
that's the internet though.
Yeah.
That's the internet. It's the rails that it runs on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all you have is the brand recognition of Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover. And the question is, what brands out there, now that we know anybody can write software, anybody has the internet to run the rails, what brands out there do consumers and businesses trust as much as they trust Visa and MasterCard to hold their money?
Apple, Amazon,
Facebook, Samsung, Google.
I saw Facebook's launching Facebook shops right now. Did you see that?
These are all, this has been my hypothesis for probably 8 years, that this is what we're doing. And it was as soon as the iPad happened, because I grew up selling credit card machines in stores, right?
Sure.
And as soon as the iPad happened and I realized this was going on, those players have the capacity. If Facebook hit you up and said, hey, Perry, we want you to put a buy with Facebook button on your page. And instead of, 2.5-3% processing fees, we're going to charge you 1%.
Which is more than the interchange fee.
Right.
Right.
But because it's not Visa and MasterCard anymore,
they don't have to interchange.
They don't have interchange, right? So,
but they still got to loan the money, basically, right? Because they're
letting
they're letting the consumer carry that for however long.
I'll hit on that point. But so your answer would be, yeah, sure, fuck it, I'll try, right? You're going to worry about conversion online, but like, let's say you're, Walmart, HEB, Target, all day you would do that. Sure, I'll accept Facebook Pay. If my machine magically does it, which it would, software.
And now you touch the machine and wandered, or from your phone, or
would consumers?
How long do you think there'll be credit cards, actually physical credit cards?
Ooh, good question.
I can't imagine more than a couple of years.
Well, so here's the thing: all of these brands are actively doing things to walk down that path already. So Apple, people didn't see this, but Apple Pay, Apple Wallet, this is Apple's very long game to tee up this situation to go Apple to Apple payments. And you mentioned,
of course.
You mentioned the term peer to peer, right?
Because I got an Apple digital credit card now in my Apple Pay, so I don't tie it to an Amex anymore. It's just
Apple. Yeah. And that was the second step. Now, the other thing that the Apple credit card does that people didn't know, or people didn't see this happening under the radar, you can move money to another Apple credit card holder, and there's a 1% transaction fee. That's Apple's next step.
So it's Cash App and Mo.
It's the next step to doing it. And they are just taking a very long approach because they wanted to first get U.S. adoption of people.
Probably regulatory too.
Using phones.
I'm sure the banking industry's shitting a brick over that.
Oh.
Screaming at politicians to block them and everything else, right?
Well, now you've got a couple barriers. You've got the actual credit, right? Is somebody going to, do any of these companies actually want to hold credit? Meaning like, I'm extending a line of credit to Perry
There's
Belcher.
Plenty of Wall Street companies willing to do that.
Well, and in Apple's case, that's Goldman Sachs.
Right.
Is holding it. But the other is we're moving away from credit for all of the younger era. Everybody, like sub 30 right now, 30-year-olds are doing much more buy now, pay later, because they realize that racking up debt with a high interest rate is stupid. So the buy now, pay laters are accelerating like crazy because kids in particular are like, no, I'll just do a 4-pay. I'm not going to throw the whole thing on my credit card and deal with interest for 4 months. I'll just pay you for 4 months. Right?
Who's doing that?
Tons of companies.
Whole
nother interesting business model.
If you get a chance, watch this YouTube video called "The Economy in 30 Minutes" by Ray Dalio.
Oh yeah, huge fan of Dalio.
I've read so much of his stuff, but this one video is so fascinating. He says the U.S. economy, or all economies for that matter, but especially the U.S. economy, are driven by one thing and one thing only: spending. There's nothing else. Forget every other metric you look at. When the credit markets begin to tighten, a downturn is coming. And right now, credit markets are loosening. If you look around, credit markets are loosening right now, which makes little sense. But you see, because the one thing you can always count on is the Americans' absolute certainty that they will spend more money than they can afford if they're given the credit to do so.
Yeah.
So when credit drives, what drives spending? Not interest rates, not prices. Credit.
Yeah.
If you give car prices can go up, interest rates can go up, but if you approve enough people to buy a car, they will buy them until such time as they begin to default, as we saw in 2008, right? So it's really interesting, but credit makes a big difference. But
which, by the way, was all created by Visa and MasterCard. The spending in the U.S. accelerated at an unbelievable rate after credit cards were invented.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the chart, it's wild from 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. Like it's out of control.
13 to 20% interest rates on credit cards.
Out of control.
Nutty shit.
Now, here are the two barriers that are going to protect Visa and MasterCard for the next 5-10 years. And it'll erode. But the barriers are points and perks. That 1% that you want as a business owner doesn't come with points and perks for the consumer. And I don't know about you, but if I can throw shit on my Amex and collect my frequent flyer miles and whatever else, I'm going to do that any day over cash.
Sure.
Because why the fuck wouldn't I?
It's a premium.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I do it?
It's a premium. I sell premiums, man.
I know it.
I know the premiums market.
So that's one. The other is disputes. And the dispute network is part of what interchange, which is the cost of the credit card ecosystem, what it covers. And until all those other companies want to get involved, and that's also the barrier to crypto taking over, is until you can figure out the dispute element and create the chargeback element.
There's so much dispute abuse now, though.
Oh, it's terrible.
I don't know how that's gonna.
That's a whole nother conversation. Obviously.
Anyway, so I didn't mean to hijack your interview, but I was curious myself because I'm paying attention to that right now.
I've thought about it a little bit.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Well, Perry, I know we're at time, man, but I'm so glad that you carved out some time to hang out.
My pleasure.
That's great, man. Do you care to promote anything? Where do you talk about all sorts of shit these days? It's wild.
I don't have a lot to promote. However, I will have. I've got the new mastermind with Qasim and with Jason Feinland called Driven Mastermind. It's at drivenmastermind.com. So that's cool. But I think we're about full. Actually, I'm kind of excited. I'm speaking at corporate events about storytelling and story branding and story, everything story. But I think for the next couple of years, I'm going to concentrate on email and helping companies make more money from email, SMS, basically follow up. It's the area of our space, of the marketing space, which is everybody's space now. Whether you're an e-com retailer or a Shopify retailer, whatever, people suck at follow up. And if you do it well, it's 2/3 of your sales. If you do it poorly, it's none of your sales, right? But people are being forced now, kind of like economics forces people to do things more the right way, right? But it costs so much more money to acquire a customer now. People really need to extract all the value out of the customer they can. And before, you could get lucky and you could just make money on the front end. You could spend $1 and make $2, right? And who cares about follow-up? But even then, you should have been following it because you probably could have made $4, right? But now you're spending $2 to make $1. So if you don't follow up well, you're dead in the water. So we're doing, like, I just did a training on email that's really good. So we sell the training. We do long-term, like, employee training, where if you got an email person, we'll train them. We'll work with them for a certain period of months to establish your program, and then, or we'll just do it for you for a rev share.
Great. Well, you should do some shit for me, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know what? Everybody that I talk to about it
says that universally.
I've not had an offer in this space to do something for somebody that recently, or is like, yeah. What I did, I was at a table yesterday with 4 people doing Q&A at another event, and 4 people sent me texts and said, let's what do we do?
Obviously.
Because it's found money.
Yeah, totally.
And we've gotten really, really, really good at it over just the last 6 months.
Where do people go to find it?
I don't know.
Find Perry Belcher online and harass him.
Find Perry Belcher online and harass him.
Perfect.
Just send me I always tell people to send my phone number. It's 512-971-5049. And you can verify that.
You are a crazy fuck.
That's the phone number in my phone. So I answer everybody eventually, except for Brad.
Well, thanks for answering this time. Man.
You're
I
welcome,
appreciate you
buddy.
hanging
It's
out,
my
dude.
pleasure.
Love it.
Take care, buddy. I'll
You
see you.
too.